Hello, how are you guys? Hope you guys are having an awesome day today. Today is Thursday, it's September the 16th. What's not to love? So we're right at the cusp of the end of the week. And we are, hello husband, able to join together for this amazing live. You may have already seen my virtual flyer in which I was talking about being able to have a live with my mentor, my writing mentor. And so just a real quick brief history. I met my writing mentor when I was going to Spalding University, which is here in Louisville. And when I went there, I actually went there for grad school. And that was the mentor that I had for my classes. And so the way that works is that you have an intensive study of like a week or two. Hi! And then after that week, you're pretty much, having to do everything virtually. You're having to like email your script or whatever you're writing on. And so I was able to really get to know him as a writing mentor. And I mean, you're going to be able to hear our story unfold, but it has just been such a blessing to be able to know him. And even after life at Spalding, he still, talks to me and gives me encouragement, gives me information that I need. Hi there, he's on here. So I'm going to put him through on the call. Without further ado, it's like I said, I hope that everybody's had an awesome Thursday. My girls are here. They're saying hi, Gloria and Sheeta. Finally have a name for her. Yes, yes. Hello! Hi there, he's on. How are you?
Hi, how is Sheeta? Hi,
this is Charlie Schulman. This is my mentor.
Hey!
Hey! And this is your first IG Live, right?
Yeah, wow.
Yay! I always get excited. It's like, yay, first IG Live. So I'm glad to know that we were able to make this work.
Yeah, me too.
I was just giving them a little bit of a history. I'm going to back up a little bit, but I was giving them some history as far as how we met at Spalding and that you were my professor. And when you're going into the MFA program, you have writing mentors. And so we had like that intensive study. I think it was like a week of intensive study. Was it 2 weeks or 1 week?
No, it was a whole semester, Rashida, I believe.
Yeah, but no, well, we had to be on location.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's a week of intensive study.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Then after that, like everything.
And there's like monthly, they call it packets of you were writing plays and you were writing essays. And I was like, every 3.5 weeks, you sent me something.
Yes. Yes.
That's how we did it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And you did not cut me any slack, and I needed it. I was like, I just got engaged. He's like, well, you still got to get that packet in. I'm about to get married. He's like, get that packet in. He's like, this is the real world.
It's 12. We were talking earlier today, and it was 12.5 years ago. And I remember one of your essays very well, actually. It was about It was about Long Day's Journey into Night. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yes.
And you did not like that play. And it was very interesting. And your essay was about why you didn't like the play. And I was like, well, all very good points, and but it's classic play. And I loved your essay about like why you didn't like it.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Later, I still remember that.
Well, I am glad that I was able, because you have a very busy schedule. So I appreciate you for being on here with me. I really, really do. So just without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about your background as a writer.
Sure. So in addition to being a professor at Spalding, MFA program, which is graduate program, I also teach at New York University. At the Tisch School of the Arts, I teach playwriting and screenwriting, and I'm a playwright. And my phone just keeps going dead. I'm a playwright, and I am a theater producer. I've produced 2 plays that I've written off Broadway. I raised the money and produced them. Those were actually musicals. And I also write non-musicals, which they call straight plays. And I write for television. I've written sketch comedy. I've sold some pilots, and I write screenplays. So that's basically my background. My heart of hearts started out writing plays, and I still do that. I just had a play. I was really fortunate this summer, in between the two kind of waves of COVID.
Yeah.
I had a play done in Cincinnati, Ohio, at the Cincinnati Lab Theater, and it was a new play called Married Life. And it was very exciting because, after spending, as we all know, after spending 15 months in my basement,
Yeah.
Suddenly I was in a room with actors and stage manager and a director, and there were actual people and bodies moving in space, and it was and the actors were on stage, and they were like they were kissing each other because that's what the script called for. And I was like, oh no, this is one person gets COVID, that's the end.
Yeah.
And we had performances, and audiences came, and it went really well. It was really it was fun to be in, and it was really the only play I've seen since COVID was my own play.
Wow.
Now things are opening up again, but a lot of people still are reluctant to go to see plays and things like that because it's cramped and there's a lot of people and all that kind of thing. But anyway, so that was a really exciting experience. So that's what I did this summer, and I just felt really lucky. And that's what I told my students at NYU, this week when we first started having classes. I was like, I appreciate so much being in person with my students.
Yeah.
And it just makes everything mean so much more, knowing that it can be taken away from us like that.
That's true. That's true. Now, I watched some of your YouTube clippings between the time of us talking last time.
Uh-huh.
And I know you had stated that you were doing classes at NYU, School of Fine Arts. And so you were saying that you were going to be doing it remotely. How was that compared to working with everyone in person?
Well, it went surprisingly well. I thought it went pretty well, but what you miss is the side conversations. You miss the little interactions, which are really the most important things. The most important things in class, and they're the most important things in life. So it's like when you have the remote class, I'm speaking to the entire class at all times, except when I'm having office hours and I can have individual conversations. But in real in-person class, it's that conversation that you have as you're walking out of the classroom where I say hey, Rashida, I really like that scene you wrote. Maybe you should think about this. And then you say something and then I respond and then you leave going, okay, I'm going to work on that.
Yes.
That doesn't happen in the remote class.
True.
That kind of interaction doesn't happen in the remote class because it's all more official, There's no private conversations in remote learning.
That's true.
And for that reason, I like in-person better.
Well, since we are talking about in-person, how familiar are you with the doll community? Or is this your first time?
I'm a doll community virgin. I know almost nothing about the doll community, and it's fascinating. I was looking at your videos and checking it out, and I have so many questions for you, but I would love for you to give me a thumbnail, background about what you've been doing and how long you've been doing it, and
awesome.
And what this is all about. Yeah.
Okay. Well, for me, since the time that we talked last, of course, I've had my children, husband and I have it. Then we just, we had, I guess, a lot of adult circumstances, bills, family, that kind of stuff, and stress and so forth. And then, homeschooling has been its own adventure. And I've been homeschooling our oldest since he was 3.
Uh-huh.
So we've always homeschooled and just always trying to figure out how to be able to relate them. I was teaching at one point in time with the school system, and then with the morning sickness, actually when I was at Spalding, I was teaching. Uh-huh. And then with the morning sickness and so forth, I ended up having to kind of let go of that for a while. But, I let go of it, period. But since that time, I ended up becoming an indie author and then self-publishing. And I wasn't even thinking about dolls. But the two oldest girls wanted to do Barbie fashion. And they kept pressing and pressing about it. And they were watching my little my froggy stuff. I don't know why I always do that, but my froggy stuff, her YouTube videos, and they were really inspired. I enjoyed watching it with them, and we were doing some creations. COVID hit, and it was like, why not? Why not go ahead, start videotaping what we're doing, taking pictures of it. I didn't know there was a doll community until I did like a hashtag Barbie,
Right.
and all the stuff pulled up. And then I ended up taking the page that I was going to devote to my hair. I was like, oh, I'm not even posting on there. It's 0 posts. So I put their Barbie pictures on there. And at first they were helping me with storylines. I would take the pictures and they would just be like, oh, this happens, this happens. Right. And it just started getting good to me. And before I knew it, I kind of like just took it over. And I was like, okay, we still occasionally play Barbies. Like they had a wedding that they did about a month ago. And I videotaped the wedding that they did. And so we still do Barbies together, and it lets us bond. And then this is like my free time. This is now, like my hobby, where I'm able to customize the dolls and so forth and do the storyline. And then I think like in February is when this came up as far as doing the IG live shows. Because a young lady that I was in communication with as well, and that was my little curvy world, we had been talking about storyline and just what we do and being able to get the story out. And then that's when God put on my heart, go ahead and do a live with her. Did one live with her, got a couple of questions, was like, okay, let's do another live. And before I knew it, I was connecting with people who I admired their work. And I was like, hey, would you mind doing a live with me? Some people were like, I'm too shy. That's not my thing. And some people were like, yes. So that's really how this all came to be.
How big is the doll community? And, its members, where are they located? Are they all over the world?
All over the world. All over the world. And it's a whole lot of us as adult collectors. Some people don't unbox theirs at all, and they're strictly about collecting. Right. And then there's some people like myself who unbox them and customize them. Like she actually originally did not have her hair in locks.
Right.
I, twist up her hair with yarn. Yeah, so there's some people who reroot and do full facials, just take off all the factory paint and redo it. They're selling miniature clothes. They're selling miniature products. We call them 1/6 scale if it's for Barbie. If it's for something that's smaller, then it's 1/12 scale. Like they have like 1/18 scale. So there's all different kind of doll collectors. You have some that collect the 18-inch dolls.
Right.
And it's some that collect really, really, really small ones.
Now, so you customize and you costume them, and then
they are our actors,
and you put them in like miniature settings as well.
Yes, the dioramas. Some people are just like, oh my goodness, like some of their dioramas I have to take lessons from them because they have such wonderful settings that they create. Right. Some people do handcraft on their own, and some people actually buy it. And, and of course that keeps that other small business going or, big business going. So they'll buy the products from there and then put it into their diorama.
Right.
And some people are taking pictures that are fashion based. So they don't have a storyline.
Right.
But they have a storyline in their head. They're just not doing a dialogue. But they'll have like every artist has a story that they're doing. So they'll put her in
they have backstories.
Yes. Yes. So they may not.
They have like personal histories.
Yes, but they may not put that in the caption, so you'll just see her dressed or him dressed, and that's pretty much it.
But the creator knows.
Yes.
Right. And
yes,
they through costume and set design and how they interact with other dolls and stuff like that.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. So it's been an enjoyment, especially because these are my actors.
Right. Now, do you do like stop action with them? Like, like move them around like that and do stop?
I haven't. We played around with it, but there are some people who that is what they do for their, for their account.
That's their thing. Right.
Yes. And it is so fantastic. That's something that I want to get into eventually. But now, with the kids and so forth and our 3-month-olds requiring more attention. So I'm not able to get it.
Everything. Right. No, that's cool.
So yeah.
What do you
never too old to play dolls?
Create them, you customize them, you design clothing for them, and then you create storylines.
Yes.
And you write dialogue, and you have. And
yes.
Who voices? Do you voice? Do you like? Is it written dialogue or is it spoken dialogue? And who speaks it? And do you speak?
It's written.
Written. Oh.
It's written, but
A graphic novel kind of thing. Like,
yes. And then for some people now, if they do the stop motion, then they actually have the video with the voices.
With the voices, right? That's cool. So you've never done that with voices. So you just write.
No, not yet. Not yet. I did one reel because previously my husband and I, we had a radio station, and we were actually, well, we were on the radio station. I'm sorry. We were on the radio station at 6 o'clock every Friday, and our radio station title was Not It. And so we talked about the importance of being married, you know, literally being a knot. So that's what we talked about during that time. And so I still have those old recordings. And so I did a reel, and I had my dolls.
That was a podcast that you were doing.
Yes. And so I had the dolls actually pretend to be us.
Oh, that.
And I had that recording going. And that's on Instagram.
Recording in the background. And
yes.
And the voices, you did the voices, or like you?
No, it was already recorded. So I was able to play the recording and then have my dolls there.
Voices at some point, right? I mean, somebody.
Because I have the recording. It was on CD.
Oh, I see. Oh.
So I had the CD playing.
Already had been talking, and then you had the character. I see. I'm sorry. Then you had.
No, you're fine.
You and your husband. Yes, Darren. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's really.
Yeah.
Cool. You know.
So it's been enjoyable.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you know, it's like a whole universe to itself.
It is.
Have entire episodes and seasons.
Some people do. Some people do. Yeah, it's really whichever way that you as the creator want to do it.
And so is it just sort of like what you feel, how you feel, like how you're feeling? You know, in terms of, or do you have like big projects that you're like pursuing every day? You know, like.
For me, I have different projects as far as like where I see my characters going.
Right.
And how their interaction is with other characters in the storyline. But for some people, they may use their dolls as a journal, like literally as a daily journal. So they'll take pictures of their dolls where they're at. So if they went out to the zoo, then they're going to show their dolls at the zoo, or they'll create a diorama that looks like a zoo and have their dolls interact with the animals and take pictures.
Right.
So this changes day by day.
And it's fictional. It's not like
no. Some of it's real.
Aaron were doing was like a recreation of your podcast. That was real.
Yes. But some of it's real.
Yeah.
Like if somebody goes to Disney World,
right,
they'll take the doll with them.
It's really fascinating. You know, I never really thought about this, but my father, who's no longer with us, but he was a therapist for children, and in his office he had a dollhouse, and he would get down on the floor with the kids, and they would have like, you know, different dolls, like, you know, and the dolls would represent, you know, the parents or the mother or the sister, brother, or the kid themselves, and they would, you know, do play.
Yes.
Playing with the dolls, and through playing with the dolls, he was able to figure out, because, you know, a kid doesn't really know what their problems may be because they're too little, and they go in, and through play, he could get a sense of what was going on with the kid. And I never really thought about that. Then I became a playwright, you know, but it's kind of interesting that he was already doing that without, you know, I mean, he was just doing it for the psychological reasons, like what's going on with this kid, how can he help the kid? But like, I don't know, it's pretty exciting because it's like, it's not you, it's the doll, but your feelings and emotions and problems and ambitions and everything else can be conveyed through the doll in a way that it's harder to do in real life.
Exactly.
You know, which is what makes it heightened and dramatic.
Yes. Before I went to the MFA program, and I was still at Spalding. I went to Spalding, graduated from Spalding, ended up going to U of L for social work, and then came to the MFA program. Decided that really wasn't my perfect fit with the social work, but but I ended up graduating with psychology and communications for undergrad.
Right.
And then after Spalding, I actually did a stint at Campbellsville University and went in for counseling, for marriage and family counseling.
Oh, cool.
And so that's one of the things that was highlighted, but that's one of the therapies is play therapy, which is so interesting because I never included us as adults in that. I always saw children as far as who would be the patients.
Right. Oh, that's kind of, yeah. I mean, the idea that it's just for children is kind of an old-fashioned idea, you know, because it's like it could be just as helpful for adults. Because sometimes we can't say things to each other, or sometimes we have a hard time expressing our feelings, you know.
Yes.
But through the doll, I can say, "Oh, I'm really, you know, I wish that you had done this, or I had said this, or da 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 da." You know, so.
And then your other doll kind of steps in and becomes that counselor. So you're really almost kind of self-counseling your own self, as far as that doll can come in and speak to you in a way that you hadn't had anyone say before. Maybe there's something that you would have wanted your mom to say, but you know, she may not have been the kind of mom who would say that. So then you bring in a doll and she speaks the way that you know that you would like, that touches your heart. And so now you're starting to really be healed in the process of playing with your dolls.
Yeah. So it's like really, it's a combination of psychology and story.
Yes.
You know, and I think that as writers, dramatic writers, people who write plays and things like that, you know, there's craft, obviously. You know, it's like, how do you write a scene? How do you write a scene that has conflict? But also it's really about, you know, human beings and how we interact and human psychology and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I see this sweeping the nation, Rashida. I mean,
oh, goodness. I appreciate it. I mean, like, we enjoy it. We're able to make connections, and you're talking to people who are, like, in Sweden like, I just got done speaking to a gentleman, and he's in Singapore. So you're able to just, you know, talk to so many people cross-culturally.
Right. And it transcends gender, everything.
Yes.
It transcends, you know, religion, race, all those things. Anybody could be into dolls. Very cool.
Very much, very much. So yeah, and one of the things too, like we learned, is that no one's too old to still play.
Right. I mean, I think that's the key, you know, with any kind of writing, especially dramatic writing, whether it's like writing for TV, or it's a play, or it's a musical, or it's a movie. It's like you have to be able to be playful.
Yes.
You know, and in a joyful way, explore things that may not be joyful. You know, because otherwise it's just too hard.
That's true.
You know, and so it's like and I found, like, you know, because I've been in, you know, I've been around. I've had a few different experiences, and I found, like, in rehearsing plays, that or doing any kind of work, when you're having a really good time, it shows up in the product of whatever it is that you're doing. And having, like, a really difficult, miserable time where, like, people don't appreciate you or don't understand you or not treating you well, then it also shows up in the work, you know, in the final product sometimes. And I'm saying, like, you know, even if you're, you know, so I think bringing some kind of joy to it, and this is like a play and like dolls, it's called dolls, but, you know, it's really, you're really dealing with something much more profound, I think.
I agree.
Than like a child's toy. It's much more than that, but it is a child's toy, and we, you know, and we have to maintain that kind of playfulness to really get at the core of things.
I agree. And I believe that was a powerful nugget for anybody who's listening. You're going, well, how do I do this with my Barbies, with my whatever dolls you have? There's all different brands of dolls out there. How do I convey that message? And it's really through playfulness, even if it's something serious. Now, with mine, I deal with more serious topics.
Right.
She's going through some other issues. I really haven't had her in my storyline. This is my Gloria doll right here, but she's going through some issues with her mom, and her husband's going through it with the mom, which is the mother-in-law to him. But then there's some people who have storylines, and it's very, very cheerful. There aren't any, you know, dips in their story, and that's because they said there's enough bad things when you turn on the news. I don't want to do that in my storyline. I totally understand.
Right. But I love the serious nature of it. You know, like, you're playing with dolls, but they're dealing with like these, grown up issues.
Yes.
I think that's awesome. And I think that, like, as a writer, we're doing that anyway without dolls. Like, we're just doing it in our heads. It's just like there's an improvisation going on. Like, I have this little. I'm sitting at my desk, and it's like, it's like, oh, hello, how you doing? I'm fine. I mean, it's like when I'm writing characters, I'm talking to myself, really.
Yeah, yeah, we are.
It's like, and I'm pretending that I'm this guy, and he's talking to someone else, and then I'm pretending that I'm her, and I'm trying to, like, make myself believe that I am each character, so I can understand their point of view.
Yes.
And actually, maybe I should, have little dolls for all my characters, and just, put them on the desk and have them talk to each other, and then write it down, even if I'm not that, because just to, like. Because I do it with my NYU students all the time, where we have improvisations with real people.
Yes.
And they play different characters. And, the playwright comes in with a scene or an idea for a scene or an idea with a character that has a conflict. And I say, like, they come up, and the student comes up with a couple of lines of dialogue, and they start improvising. And we swap students in and out, and then the playwright says, try it this way, try it that way. But when you're home alone working on something, you don't have those people.
True.
To help you. It's all
Very
just in your head. And by, like, making it tangible, like making it like this is really a character, then it's easier maybe to, like, improvise in your head.
Yes.
I'm gonna try that.
Yay! Hey! I'm excited to hear that. I am, because
the doll community. Yeah, who knows? How did you start? Like, what do you do? Like, where'd you get? I mean, you started with your kids, but, like, how do people, like, how do they find their first doll and realize they're into it? I mean, just people like dolls, I guess, and they collect dolls, and then it just kind of grows from there.
It grows from there. I mean, like, you could go to Walmart, Target, and go into the doll aisle. You can go online if you feel uncomfortable. You can go online, go to Amazon, Walmart. You put in, Barbie, or you put in Ken even, but Barbie doll, and you're just going to get a full list.
I'm sure everybody must have their own story. Like, everyone has a different story about how they got into it.
Yes.
But there's probably a lot of common ground, right? There's probably, like, a lot of similarity. People were playing with Barbies, and then they, like, Barbie wasn't.
Some people some people said they never stopped. Now, I did stop for a portion. I think I had stopped, like, around 9th grade or so, because it just wasn't cool anymore. But I kept my dolls, but I just wasn't playing.
Right.
And stored them, ended up getting mice, and lost most of them.
Thrown out or whatever. Right.
Yeah. So now I end up having to start mine all back over. But some people never stopped. They just kept buying them, kept collecting them.
I can't remember where I was. I think I was in London, and I saw the Barbie exhibit, the museum. There's, like, a Barbie museum somewhere in the world.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And it was incredible. All the things they did with Barbie. But I guess, like, I could see how, like, Barbie is also limited in some ways. It's one-dimensional, and it's like Mattel's take on Barbie, is, like, primarily white, right? I mean, it's like, although it's changing.
It is changing.
Right.
It is definitely changing. But, I mean, you are still doing with a more Eurocentric point of view. But I would say probably within about the last 10 years. Now, of course, I've just gotten right back into collecting, but I think within the last 10 years, they've been making their line more diverse. So you see more, diversity with the skin tones. You see it with the body shapes. It's not the same kind of body shape. Some are flat chest, some are bigger chest, some have hips, some don't. You're seeing more diversity with their dolls. They have green hair for the guys, and you're just seeing different changes. And it is needed because the culture's different.
Yeah, well, the world is changing, but for so long, Barbie didn't change.
It didn't.
For so long, that was, like, this very narrow, rigid standard.
Yes, and that's the word I'm thinking of too.
Yeah, rigid. You know, I mean, yeah. And I guess the doll community must be expanding that, like going much further than, you know, Mattel or those companies.
They are. And one of the ways that they're expanding it is through the customizations. Like I said, with this one, I customized her as far as I did change up her makeup some. I've changed over her hair. But there are some people who go all the way out. They take off all the face makeup.
Right.
And I mean, they do a phenomenal job. They repaint all the way. They take off the hair, they cut it, and they reroute and put a whole different hairstyle. And then they sell those dolls, or they keep them and take pictures of them. So it tells Mattel, like, we need to step it up. We need to change up our paint. We need to change up the skin tone, because if we don't,
Mattel is like paying attention.
yes, yeah, and this is one of the dolls that they paid attention to, because people said, we want a doll that looks this way. And so you actually do see that with her. It took them up until almost like 3 or 4 months ago to actually give a darker skin tone Ken that was made to move. Because they had darker skin tone black Kens, but they were not made to move. They were always stiff. So they finally got one that is of a darker skin tone. I know we're in 2021, and finally got one because people were so upset. They were like, we really want a diverse Ken that moves. We want one that is, yeah, that represents people that we see, that's like us.
Right. And they must be doing dolls with disabilities and everything.
Yes. Yes. But I still feel like there's more. I mean, like there's still more that can be done. We have one that's in a wheelchair.
Mattel is still behind. They're behind the doll community for sure. The doll community sounds like it's way ahead of them.
Doll community is much more ahead. They really are. And there's no slight at Mattel. It's just the reality of it. The most that I have seen, I know, I want to say like in the 2000s or late 90s, there was a sign language doll, but we haven't seen one like that again.
Right.
So there was the sign language doll. There is the one in the wheelchair, and that's really about it.
They do like one and done instead of like really making a commitment to growing their audience.
Yes.
Having a more diverse audience as well. After all those years of, like, you know, white Barbie from California. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad to see the changes, but there does need to be more.
Yeah, like, and everywhere in our society.
Yes.
Change is happening, but, you know, it needs to happen faster and more.
It does, you know, and it's sad that, and I know we're going another route with this, but it still relates to writing, as far as your writing is affected and influenced by what's going on around us. And, you know, it's pretty disappointing to see how things are kind of rewinding in our culture, and not just in our Western culture, but in other areas of the globe.
Yeah, it seems like we're both going forward and backwards at the same time, simultaneously.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like this country is like moving ahead and you know, going backwards simultaneously.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, Rashida, so I mean, I know you just got involved in this in the last couple of years, and it's mostly been during COVID, but like, is it all online, or is there like any kind of live aspect of this world? Like, are there conferences or places where people just go and like trade and swap and like show each other things and like pick up
there are
bills and stuff like that?
Yes, they actually they have the Barbie conferences that they do. I didn't go to this one this year. They had that one online because of the COVID, but they usually meet in person for that. They also have different doll shows, and people are able to, you know, they have their vendor tables, and people are able to do, you know, business in that way and do transactions. So they do have stuff, and then they have a Barbie truck, but the Barbie truck doesn't come here, unfortunately. That Barbie truck's usually right along like California. So yeah, people go to the Barbie truck, and it's kind of like an ice cream.
So right now?
Hmm?
You live in Louisville?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. And there's no Barbie truck. We got to get the Barbie truck out there.
I know. I got to write them and ask them to do a tour over here.
Yeah, or come up with your own truck.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So I mean, like, there's still a lot that can be done with dolls. I know, like for myself, I recently did a couple of books for the doll community. As far as, one is a journal, so that you can be able to journal your ideas and your concept. Actually, it's 3 books. Another one is a character origin journal, so that, and it has different questions in it, like the name of your doll, the birth date of the doll, where the doll works, those things. And it doesn't say doll, it actually says character, because it's to help you build your storyline. Because this could become a book, it could become a play, it could become a screenplay. So just asking you those questions
All
to
of
really,
character, yeah.
yes, yes, and making that character more tangible. So it's not just the doll, but now I'm really looking at this being like what a person would be.
Right. It's coming to life.
So yes, it does, making it come to life. And then I also have a planner. So there's so much, because we have different doll events on here. So someone may have like a birthday party for their doll, and they'll make a hashtag.
Right.
And then we take pictures, and then we put the hashtag, and then our dolls virtually join up. So that one is a planner, so people can put those dates in there. But it's, like I said, there's so much more, especially when we talk about in person. And once when the COVID, statue is kind of lit up, there's so much that can be done.
Yeah, it's an entire universe, it sounds like.
It is. It is.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you go into a new world and you see what it is and what it could be, and it's like whatever it may be.
Well, I tell you what, if you have any of those Monday ideas that you that I see that you post on those Monday ideas, yes, on Facebook, different ideas. You're like, I'm gonna shoot this out there. I'm not gonna use it. I'm like, shoot, if you get an idea on a Monday and you don't want to use it, as far as with the doll community, let me know.
Let's do something for the doll community.
Okay.
Something entrepreneurial.
Okay. Hey, I do a virtual handshake on that one. I like it. Okay. So I guess we'll be planning and talking after this live then.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay, cool. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. This is like totally off script.
I know where this was going.
I know, right? But I like it. I will definitely be keeping in touch with you about it.
Yeah. So, anything else? Any other questions yet?
Well, I planned on talking to you about, actually, I was going to talk to you about your play.
Yeah.
With the Goldstein play.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little bit about it. I wrote a play. It was called Goldstein. It was based on it was a musical, and it's based on a play that I wrote called The Kitchen.
Okay.
And what it was that I was driving one day. It was actually late at night. It was raining, and I was driving, and I was listening to the radio, and the radio DJ or host or whatever he had a show said, "Call in with your family secrets." It was an hour of like calling in, call in with your family secrets. So people called in with their family secrets, and it was, my mouth dropped open. It was stunning. People were like, my mother, my sister was my mother. You know what I mean? All these kind of things. Like, father was, we thought my father. They told me my father was in the military, but he was in, he was in jail. I mean, just a million stories about family secrets, and all these people were like so relieved to unburden themselves of their family secrets, and it was just surprising, like how many people have big secrets. It was like person after person after person with shocking secrets. And then I started thinking about my own family and my own family. A lot of it has to do with shame too. There's a lot of shame involved. And I was thinking about my own family, and like the big secret in my own family was that my grandmother, who was an immigrant, who came on the boat from Russia, met a man on the boat. And he was going to Chicago and she was going to New York, and they fell in love on the boat.
Wow.
And she said to him, I'm going to New York, you're going to Chicago, and she gave him her address and everything, and she was waiting for him to send for her, and they were going to be together. She was in love with him. And he never contacted her. And
Oh.
she was totally heartbroken, like devastated. And then she eventually met my grandfather, Charlie, who I'm named after. Lucky for me, right? So she met my grandfather, and she married him, and they had children, and they had a nice life. And then he eventually, like, many years later, died. And then she was an old woman, and when she had gone to New York, she went to go stay with her brother and her sister-in-law when she was a young woman, when she first came to this country.
Okay.
And then, but when she was like in her 70s, the sister-in-law passed away, and she went to the funeral, and basically the sister-in-law's children gave her all these things because when she used to live with them when she first came to this country, and among the things that they gave her a box of like photographs and keepsakes, things from like when she was living with her sister-in-law and her brother, and in the box were letters, like a bunch of letters from the man on the boat, who,
What?
and he had written to her, saying, "I love you, I'm in love with you, I want to be with you, why aren't you writing me back?" And so it's this totally heartbreaking story. And this was like the big secret, you know, because she didn't want the story to come out because she didn't want my grandfather's, my who was dead at that point, to be embarrassed by it or something, So it was like
Yeah.
very like hush hush in the family. And I think she was just so heartbroken by the whole thing. But apparently, and then the whole question is, why? Why did that happen? And there's like no really good reason other than the sister-in-law was not a very nice person, a horrible person. And
Wow.
and my grandmother said, because I asked her about it, she said, well, the sister-in-law wanted, my grandmother was just off the boat, and the sister-in-law wanted my grandmother to stay and cook and clean and do the laundry and take care of the family. She didn't want her to go off and be happy and get married. So anyway, so that was like the big story in my family that this listening to the radio reminded me of. And then I thought about it some more, and there were actually a few more things like that, people who went to jail and all kinds of stuff, and nobody talks about it, and all kinds,
Yeah.
all kinds of crazy stuff that happen in families, and every family has it to one
Yes.
or another, and we don't talk about it because I think there's a lot of shame involved, and it's messy. It's messy, and so I wrote this play, Goldstein, and it's a musical, and basically the idea is that family secrets propel the narrative.
Mm.
And
I like that.
I did like
I like that.
70 years in one family in 90 minutes. And so it's like, the first generation, gets married, has children. The second generation grows up, has children, and it takes it, all the way up to the contemporary, to the time. And it's just secret after secret after secret that moves the story forward. And I didn't have to make anything up. I mean, my mother came to see it, and she was just kind of like, "What?" And she was very loving and supportive, and I'm grateful for that, because she could, she said, "Well, I really liked it." I mean, she said, "That's not the way it happened. You got everything wrong, but I like it anyway." And I think that, it's just like memory. People have selective memories, and memory changes over time. And people have, I didn't really know what happened in my family and I just have stories that people told me.
Yeah.
Some things that I witnessed, but not my, I didn't witness my grandmother. You know what I mean? I didn't witness my grandmother over from Russia and stuff like that. I just heard stories. So like, we all have like this narrative of who we are. How much of it, but it's fractured. You know what I mean? It's like it's not a clean line. And also some of it, like how much of it do we know, how much of it is absolutely true? It's like, and what is true anyway? It's like people have different points of view. I mean, my
That's true.
sisters and I had, we, had plenty of experiences that were all similar, but we all see them completely differently because we're different people. We had different relationships with our parents.
Yes.
It was different timing, different circumstances, different gender, all kinds of things. So all of that interests me, and so that was the play. That was Goldstein, and I found a composer lyricist who wrote the music and the lyrics, and he wrote a song about my grandmother, and it was called "Beloved." It's a really beautiful song. I wish I could even play it for you, but in the musical, she gets the letters, and she sees the letters, and she reads the letters, and she sings the letters. And the letters, there's 3 different letters. The first one is, "I love you so much, I can't wait to see you." The second one is, "Well, why haven't you written me back? What's going on?" And the third one is, "I guess you met somebody else and you don't love me anymore." And it was a beautiful, beautiful song. So, like, what's nice about writing musicals, I'm not a musical person. I don't play any instruments. But that collaboration is really exciting, where you're writing with someone else together on the same story, but they're doing something that you don't do. They're doing lyrics and music. I'm just a script, I'm just doing the dialogue between the characters and the storyline.
Okay.
So I enjoy that because a lot of times I find writing lonely, and it's not that it's lonely. It's just hard. It's hard to just sit there and, like, when you get into it, then you can, like, I know you never have a problem writing pages because you're, like, creative, and you can do a lot of things at the same time. Me, it's a little harder, but yeah. So writing my own stuff I like it, and I keep doing it. But bouncing ideas with other people, collaborating with other artists, which is what I like about plays too.
Yeah.
It's like you want to work with, like, smart people who are great at what they do because it makes you better.
That's true.
And like and they have ideas. Like, they'll say something like, "This character would never say this," or what if you explore this possibility? And sometimes I say, "I don't think so," or sometimes I say, "Yeah, that's a great idea." And then I go off and I rewrite the scene, or change it, or cut it, or take their suggestion, or change their suggestion, or whatever. But it's that input from other people that gives you that creative spark, or at least for me.
It does. I'm right on with you. For a portion of time, I was doing some plays at the church that Darren and I were attending, and it was his brother's church, and so we were there for a number of years. And I was doing plays like every Thursday, I think, or I think it started off like once a month, and then it ended up changing where it was like every other Thursday. Right. So long story short, I would allow the actors to have an input because you're playing that character.
Yeah.
So I may have something in my mind that I feel works.
Right.
But you're having to embody that character. If you say, just like you said, if you say that this doesn't sound right, this doesn't sound natural to that character, right, then I need to go back to that board and rewrite. I need to go back to the draft board and just look at what I put there. What do you see that character doing? Right. How do you see that character dressing?
Yeah, it's like you have to either convince them, but if you can't convince them, then they're not going to be able to do it well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if they're not, I think it's probably true with anything. If they're not buying into it, then they can't really deliver it.
True.
So the first thing you try to do is, like, maybe fine tune it, or like try to get them to go along with you, try to, like, help them figure it out, and then realize that that's not going to happen. Then you start making adjustments, or sometimes you just right away start making adjustments because their suggestions are good.
I agree. Now that is one of the cons, kind of like a con as far as working with the dogs, because they don't give you feedback. So they're kind of going to go along with you on what you're writing. Now, if you're really, really in tune with the narrative of your character, then your character will tell you in your mind, like, that's not natural. That's not what I would do. So then you have to go back, you go ahead and you obey that voice and you go back and you rewrite it.
Right.
What also helps as far as doing this on Instagram is that people will comment. If someone's really involved with your storyline, they'll comment. I've had comments that really made me go back and think, and where I was like, oh,
yeah,
maybe I need to go back and look at that. Like that feedback helps out a whole lot. Like, let me go back and look at that. I didn't consider that. And then I add more details. So it gets me deeper involved with my character by their feedback.
Because what's so smart about that, Rashida, is that the audience is a collaborator. And you want them to feel a certain way. They don't always feel that way. And, you want them to have a certain response, but other times you're surprised by their response in a good way.
Yes. Yes.
And then they are collaborating with you.
And I was talking to my children about that.
Uh-huh.
That feedback is so important. It helps you to become a stronger writer. You can look at it and be like, oh, you don't like what I wrote, right, and then have a pity party, but that's not going to help you become a stronger writer.
Right. No, that's like I say to my NYU students, this idea, like, they're like, oh, like when I say, like, oh, I think you got to rewrite this scene. That's not punishment. That's not saying that the scene's no good.
I hope my son's listening to this. My kids, period. It's like, rewrite it.
Yeah, it's like, well, I say to them, and I like I'm speaking to myself, is like, you have to want to rewrite it. You have to like be dying to rewrite it, to get feedback that's going to make it better, make it more,
yes,
more alive, more what you're trying to do. And then you see that revision is wonderful. It's a goal. It's not a punishment. It doesn't mean you got it wrong. Sometimes you have to write something 16 times. And like, people don't believe it. Non-writers don't believe it. But you know that that's true, because you're a writer. and so that's what I try to, my undergrads, that's what I try to convey to them, almost the most in some ways, because like, they think you just sit down and you write it once and that's it. But no, that's just the beginning that you build from. And
yes.
It's not a punishment, it's a pleasure, although it feels like a punishment sometimes.
That's
hard, it's hard. It's hard to write one word sometimes, It's hard to sit down. I mean, I can't tell you how much I don't know how, you probably don't procrastinate because you don't have a lot of time, so you got to like get stuff, you do it. And I think that kind of pressure might be good too. It might be like an outlet for you. You sit down and you're like, okay, I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
So I can't fool around. I got to do this now. Because the rest of the day, I got a million other things that I have to do.
So very, very, very true. But even with that though, because it is a creative process and you do want to put, no matter if it's like an intense scene, you want to put, just like you said, your joy into it. You want to put your playfulness into it. Right. You want to put your love into it. So if you're drained and like, I haven't been sleeping well, I can stare at that laptop and be like, okay, it's 5 o'clock. I know I need to write because they're going to get up early. And I got to get them fed and get to, homeschooling and washing and all this other stuff. Right. I can actually sit there at that laptop and be blanked out because my brain is just frozen in that moment. It is needing some rest. So, I mean,
right, you can't be on.
It's a balancing act.
You're only human, right? You can't be on all the time.
I know, right?
Even the earth must, be fallow sometimes.
What did I say I was? I can't think. Is she Wednesday? Oh, it's Small World. That's what I used to always say I was. The robot girl from Small World.
Uh-huh.
Did you ever see that series?
Yes.
Yeah, that's who I used to say I was growing up. Like,
oh, yeah?
I just thought that I could like just keep doing. But you need rest. You need rest.
Right. I think everyone does.
Yeah. You have to balance it.
Right.
But I mean, like, you answered so many questions because I had some questions about that play as far as, like, did you have to get, like a music degree to be able to do it? And I did see that you did have your collaborator as far as with Michael Roberts.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that he had did the music portion. I thought that maybe Small Wonder. Thank you, Darren. I thought maybe you had. Yeah, he wrote Small Wonder because that's what it's called, Small Wonder.
Small World. I don't know. Okay, I don't know Small Wonder.
All Small Wonder. Yeah. But yeah, I was going to ask you, did you have to do like the notes and the lyrics? But then you actually answered
Oh,
that.
I did. I mean, it's like, even though I'm not musical, I mean, he was writing the song about my grandmother's love affair, that, heartbreak, you know what I mean? And so I had a lot invested in it, you know what I mean? It was like, sometimes I would say, like, I think that this line, even though I'm not a lyricist and I'm not a composer, I don't know anything about music, I would say things like, I think it needs to be faster, or I think it needs to be slower, or I think it needs to be more somber, or I think it needs to be more upbeat. And he would talk to me about the scenes too, because because the scene has to set up the song. In a musical, the scene does something and the song does something, and the two are like,
Blend in.
yeah, but they can't repeat each other. So, like, when I originally wrote that play, it was 110 pages, and then the musical, at the end, I only had like 40 pages of script, and the rest was all song. So, like, one song. So the song about my grandmother when she's singing about the letters was like a 10-page scene in the play, but then when it became a musical, it was just like a 4-minute song.
Wow.
A lot shorter. So because we were converting scenes into scenes with songs, so the scenes became much shorter. The music kind of took over, and but it was like 60% of the script got cut
Wow.
to make it a musical. Because in musicals, if you watch musicals, the scenes are short, and
They are.
they get to the song. They start with the opening number, and then they go to the "I Want" song. And then there's a duet, and there's an up-tempo comic number, and there's all these different kinds of songs you have to have. But like, you don't have too long of a period of time before the next song, because it's a musical. And sometimes there's music underneath the scenes, like kind of score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that actually works for us as the audience because it keeps us in tune with what's going on stage. Like, I love musicals,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen it, of course, in a while. Being at home with the kids and so forth. But I do. I love musicals. I love watching it on TV whenever I get a chance to, because it keeps you in tune with it, and as you're working with right brain and left brain, hemispheres.
And the underscoring is really cool, because like there might be a song, and then there's a scene, and you'll hear like a musical motif underneath the scene that kind of like harkens back to that song, so that that she's thinking about something. So it's like the music is kind of giving us subtext.
And we really need that in a play, because we don't do flashbacks. It's not the same like when you're watching a movie or TV. You can be like, cut.
Right.
Let's make this scene look black and white to, let everyone know that this is in the past. Or let's key in these other actors who are younger so they know this is the younger version.
Right.
You don't have that same kind of freedom when you're doing the stage play. So you have to be able to, have that underscore so that people can have that in their memory. Like, oh, just like you said, okay, she's remembering back when she was young.
Yeah.
This relates to this particular time period.
Sometimes there's certain musical themes that, that you have in a musical that you'll have throughout the musical, and then the song comes. And it's like the full-fledged version of that theme. And then other times it's after the song. It's like a harkening back. So, I mean, I learned a lot. I didn't know really I love musicals, but I'm not musical. And I didn't really know anything about writing a musical. I just written this play, and I just felt like this play should be a musical. And I tracked Michael down because he had had some success writing shows, and I wrote to a bunch of musical theater people whose music I liked and whose work I liked, and who I hoped would return the phone call. Like a lot of people don't. So, but he did, and we didn't know each other at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we met that way. I sent him a script, and and I said, I really like your show that I saw, and I was wondering if you were interested in this material, and maybe we could work together. And then my number changed. He kind of tracked me down. This is a weird thing. And then we met, and he was like, yeah, let me write one song and see what happens. And he wrote one song, and I was like, that's great. Let's do this. And we've been working together for 10 years since then. And, we've been like creative collaborators. We did 2 shows together. And musicals take a really long time. they take years and years. It's like if you knew what it was, if you knew what it took, like if I knew what it took, I would never have done it. Everything takes much longer than you think it will, and and musicals are like two-headed dragons, especially a big musical, and there's just a lot of moving pieces, and like a play, like in a play, you do revisions of a scene over and over. But musicals, it's like you throw things out, you add new songs. It's like there's so much revision.
I can understand that. Now I haven't done a musical, but Darren and we did a cartoon, and actually it's on YouTube. It's called Southwick Gang Adventures, and it was kind of a summary of what their childhood was like. Right. When he was growing up, and his cousin was the one that was directing it and producing it and so forth. And nonetheless, we had to be in the studio. It's only like about a 5-minute or 6-minute cartoon. But we had to be in the studio constantly, and it literally did take years before it even became an actual, tangible item. I think we started when I was pregnant with my third child. And by the time that we were doing the screenings for it, and they were doing the fundraising and so forth, I had just had my number 5. And actually, I think he was like 1 by the time that it had really started to develop. And then when we were going to be, getting it out there more, I was pregnant with number 6. So, that took years to really even get it into production level. And we did all kinds of voiceover, and we were in this studio, and then he had this script, and then he was like, this script's not going to work, so we're going to take out these pages. And he's like, wow, we're just, we're having to let go of so much of what we had already, gotten on there voice-wise.
Willing to give it up. Yeah, give things up. And you have to be willing to be open to new possibilities. It's hard.
I agree.
And
I agree.
It's hard for me too. I'm like, hey, I spent 3 weeks on that scene. You want me to throw it out? Yeah, I do. Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. It is. It is.
But that's the job. That's the job. That's the job. You have to be willing to do that. You got to be willing to put, sometimes you have to go down the wrong path to figure out the right one.
Well, that's like a life lesson right there. Period.
Yeah. Right.
Period. In life, period. You have to be able to go down the wrong path. Yeah, in order to find the right one. That's so true.
Happens all the time.
It does. Yeah. It does.
Right.
I have like so many more questions, but I'm just going to leave it really with 2. 2 questions. One being, I know that with the play, someone had stated that they thought it was like similar to Fiddler on the Roof.
Right.
What do you do in those cases as a writer? And if you're doing your storyline and someone says, oh, this reminds me of, I don't know, whatever happened to Baby Jane, right. That kind of reminds me of this sister rivalry situation. Do you stop writing, or do you just go back? How do you deal with that?
You lean into it, really. It's like, it's not bad to be compared to something great. And you're always going to be you. And the way, nobody else can write something that you write the way you write it. And so, and quite frankly, for us, we were thrilled when we were compared to Fiddler on the Roof, because that helped us sell tickets. So we love that comparison. It's when you get compared to something that's not so good that you're like, wait a minute. But yeah, a lot of times, like, I'm working on a movie or something like that, and then something comes out and it's a lot like my movie, and I'm like, I get scooped. And I think sometimes you do. And it's hard. But other times, you're not really being scooped, because it's like you're doing it the way, nobody else can write a Charlie Schulman play. You know what I mean? I'm the only one who can do that. And, people might like it, or they might not like it, or whatever, but it's unique to me.
There you go.
And I know that. So
yes.
if it's similar to some other idea, I don't care, because it's an idea I want to write. And I know that I can do it in a way that is unique to me. But yeah, there are, in a practical, real world sense, yeah. Like if you're writing a certain kind of thing and then something else comes out that's like it, and if that thing doesn't do well, that's even worse. Like if you're writing something and something comes out and it's a hit, that might be good for you because they're looking for other things that are like that show that was a hit. But if you're writing something and it comes out and it turns out to be unsuccessful, nobody wants to touch something else that's like something that just failed.
That's true. That's very, very true. My other question in connection with that, because with that play, you stated that each family member basically has some type of secret that they're holding.
Right.
One of the recent lives, maybe like 2 lives ago, as far as like IG live shows that I did, I spoke to them about secrets and about the importance of, like if you're having a drama, because everyone's storyline is different. So if you do have a drama, you do want to have some type of secrecy. Like with my character, Gloria, her mom is holding on to a secret, and it's literally just causing confusion in the family.
Right.
Because she's not willing to let go of whatever past situation took place. And it's disturbing her peace and it's disturbing everyone else's peace.
Right.
But she hasn't told. So I was saying that it's important whenever a character has a secret that you don't let the other characters really know. Right. And you may not want to let your audience know. But then on the other hand, you could be like an Iago from the Othello play, right, and he has a soliloquy, right, that he's saying, this is what I'm going to do. Right. But he still doesn't tell the characters. So I wanted to know, in your play, how did you work that with the secrets?
Well, sometimes the secrets when the secrets are revealed, it changes everything. And so there's like a dramatic shift. So like, the withholding of the secret has impact on everyone. And then eventually the telling of the secret also has impact. So that you get your double bang for your dramatic buck that way. First, the withholding of the secret causes all kinds of pain and strife and problems and confusion. And, and then the revealing of the secret, it's a dramatic shift. A character is a certain way, and when they reveal the truth, everything changes. There's a new momentum. There's a new dramatic beat when a secret is revealed that creates like new problems and new solutions. So the secrets are really good transitional story points. I think a lot of things, like, any kind of new information, like betrayal, like if a character betrays another character, that's sort of a revealing of a secret. And then it turns, that's always a shift. Any kind of, also like revealing a secret, another way to think about it are like shifts in power.
Okay.
Once the truth comes out, everything is different. The world becomes different that they're in. And that creates like new problems, new conflicts, new actions.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that. That's like, it really does give like a whole different perspective, especially when you say shifts in power. I mean, I'm sitting thinking about my storyline right now and how what you said would be a benefit in that area. Because right. I really saw the mother character, Catherine, is still having this power, especially, should it come out, she's still going to be the powerful character. Whereas, no, she may be more vulnerable, and that there may be that shift that takes place where someone else in the storyline becomes empowered. That character now knows more. What are they going to do with it? Right. So I like it.
Well, yeah, or it could be like we, the audience, know, and the other character doesn't know. And that changes the dynamic too.
Yes.
If we know something that somebody doesn't know.
Which is what we kind of feel like because you know how much I love William Shakespeare. Because when I came into Spalding, I came there with the Othello play because I was going to like switch it all around and have the female as the main character. Uh-huh. But nonetheless, in Othello, you have Iago, and he's such a strong character. And I've said many times, I feel that play is really carried on the shoulders of Iago. That's my opinion.
Right.
I feel that it is. But Iago does share, this is my secret.
Right.
And we know throughout the play that every step that he's taking is to fulfill his grand scheme.
Right.
No one else knows.
Right. And what's great about that is that, you have an active protagonist who knows what they want and is moving through the story, as opposed to a protagonist who doesn't know what they want, which is often the case. A lot of times when I'm writing stuff, or my students are writing things, like they're not really clear on what their protagonist is trying to do.
Exactly.
The clearer you are, the easier it is, and the more dramatic it is, the better it is, I think.
I agree. I fully agree. So I know I did say 2 questions, but my only last one, because I did have some mentorship questions, but do you yourself also have a mentor?
I have had several mentors in my life, and people who have been very generous to me and very helpful to me, and I learned a lot from. So it's made it easier for me to be a mentor because, I got so much from my mentors. I mean, I know it sounds corny, but it's true.
It's true.
Yeah, and of course, like when I was younger, I didn't always know that they were my mentors. I didn't realize what the dynamic was. And sometimes I did, though. Yeah, so I definitely had mentors in my life. A couple people jump out while I'm talking right now as like people who really helped develop me as an artist and and a person.
Yes.
And yeah. So the answer is yes, and that's why I enjoy it so much, because I got so much out of it that it's not, I know people say, oh, I want to give back. It's not that. It's like, it's pleasurable. I enjoy it. It's not like I'm just giving back because I got something. I mean, I am, but that's not why I'm doing it.
I fully understand.
Like when you find somebody who has talent and you can like help nurture that talent and then they flourish, that feels great.
Yes.
Some people don't want other people to flourish in their presence because they're insecure, or, you know what I mean? To me, that's the definition of mediocrity to me, is like someone who can't allow others. I want to surround myself with people who are great at what they do, who are better than me.
Yes.
Who are more talented, have more experience, have better connections, enjoy life more. That's who I want to be with.
I agree.
I want some of that to rub off on me. But I think a lot of people are, shy about that because they're insecure about that. I mean, I'm insecure too, like other people, but not in that way. So
I agree. I mean, like that answers so many, because I literally had a question: what do you enjoy about being a mentor? And you really did. You expressed that.
Yeah.
As far as the enjoyment that you get off of it.
Yeah, I think the standard answer is, oh, I like giving back. People gave to me, and now I'm giving back. And while that's true, that's not emotionally the fulfilling thing. I mean, I guess it is. I am giving back, but it's something more creatively exciting about it.
I totally dig it. I totally do. I mean, like I experienced that even in parenting, and also homeschooling and teaching them about because we're really big on, I mean, like all the subjects, but of course writing, being able to articulate yourself. And whenever I see them being able to develop and grow with their writing, then they have these different ideas of what they want to do. Now, we don't really let them be on social media, but we're still getting them prepared, because this is the wave of the future, technology. Right. And so we're like, hey, this is what you have to do, and you hashtag here, and you do this, and you have to develop this idea. And if you're wanting to do what I'm doing right now with the show, or you want to do what Dad is doing with his business online, then do it.
Right.
And so we're telling them all the time about, going back over your writing and looking at it. That's why it was such a huge thing for me when we talked about revision. Right. But we want to see them be better than us. And I feel like as a parent, as a teacher, an instructor, a mentor, whatever it is, you want whoever you're mentoring, your mentee,
right,
to be better than you.
All those things, they teaching, parenting, producing, all those things, it's like I became a better producer because when I became a parent. Because like when you're a parent, sometimes you got to do stuff that you wouldn't want to do because you're shy or you just don't want to do it. But like, you know what I mean? It's hard.
Yeah.
Kid, you have to do it. You have to do it for your kid. And so like you find yourself doing things that you would never have done before you had a child.
Yes.
And that makes you a more capable person. You know what I mean? And and then when I produced shows after I had a kid, I was like, oh, I can do this. This is like, the show is my baby. You know what I mean? And it's like, I got to make this phone call that's really difficult and that I don't want to do, because I have to tell somebody something that they don't want to hear, and they're going to be mad at me. But now I have to go make 7 of those phone calls. You know,
My goodness.
and
Yeah.
that's what producing is, and that's what parenting is to some degree. You know, yeah,
That's
it's
true.
all connected, for sure.
Like, if I can handle my kid being mad at me because I'm having to, tell you the truth about something,
Right.
then I can handle someone who's a stranger.
Right.
Who I don't have that kind of bond with, who I don't have to grow old with. I can handle whatever reaction you're going to take.
Yeah, I mean, you always do your best. You do well by people. You be honest. You make a mistake. You say, "Hey, I made a mistake. How can I fix it? How do I fix it?" You know.
And that comes from, once again, being able to tell your kid sorry whenever you have to. And it's hard because as a parent, you're feeling like you have that elevation status. And now I have to be honest and saying, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, or whatever the case is. Yeah. But it does make you a stronger and better person in the end, especially when you're having to deal with other people.
Yep. Totally.
So I fully agree with you. Well, I don't want to take up all your time tonight. And I am thankful
for talking with you. And thank you, everybody who's been listening. And
yes.
Darren, thanks. And Rashida will be in touch.
Yes. You too. And I am I've met that virtual shake about that doll entrepreneurship. So we'll.
Any ideas you have, let's keep the conversation open.
Okay. All right. You
take care now. Have a great
You too. Tell your family I said hi. Thank you for letting me use your time today.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Highlight of my day. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.